going to be talking about the last 3 of the 6 variables. And as a reminder, each of these variables has 5 different strengths or virtues of a similar nature that comprise it. The variables are we, me, follow, lead, build, win, how, what, heart, head, and no-go. Each of these variables is made up of masculine and feminine attributes. And while these attributes appear to be polar opposites, really they're just different versions of the same. They're both part of the whole. We face this all the time in our work days. We have to be accommodating when we're negotiating in order to keep the talks moving, and yet at the same time, we have to assert our position to make sure that we're treated fairly in the final negotiation. We have to put in place processes at the same time as we're taking action in order to reach our goals. We want to have good short-term results for our company, but we don't want to hurt our company's long-term prospects to do so. And we have to remember the value of stability at the same time as we're open to change. Feminine energy relishes the process, and it considers all aspects. Meanwhile, the masculine energy virtue focuses on the goal. Feminine energy wants to see all parts of the process at once and to consider them all, while masculine energy is very focused and wants to do things one at a time. As a result, feminine energy is very prone to multitasking, while masculine energy is very sequential. Feminine energy people are people, while masculine energy people are things people. And those people who are feminine energy work to live. And those people who are masculine energy, they live to work. The difference between the how and the what variable can be seen in jazz and classical music. Jazz music, they make it up as they go along. They wait for the sounds and they express themselves when they think it feels right. Whereas classical music is all about the end result and it's very specific. With classical music, the results take precedent over how it was achieved. But with feminine energy, that jazz music, it's all about the process to make that music. Is so overly involved in the exercise that it loses sight of where it wants to be. In the how-what variable, the masculine energy vice is so concerned with the outcome that it will sacrifice integrity in order to achieve it. I see this so often. People are so involved in the process that they just get all wrapped up in it and lose sight of the goal entirely. They get lost in the process, they lose sight of time, and they never meet their goals. I also see that when they get close to a decision, they back off and go back into the process. They can't help themselves. They love being there. It's a strength for them, but when they do too much of it, it becomes a weakness. For masculine energy people, they fall into their vice because they get so wrapped up in reaching their goal that they forget about the process. All they do is focus on where they want to be. A young engineer told me about this. She had to make an app for a class at school. And she said she did it in a hurry. She finished the app and thought, okay, I've got it. I know what I want to do and I've got it all cased. And she put it aside and went on with all her other work and assignments. And then she came back to it the night before she had to turn it in, and she realized that she hadn't spent enough time on the process. And she was completely missing a whole number of steps that she needed to do. And then she had to pull an all-nighter to make it happen. And she recognized that by being too much in her vice and being too goal-oriented, that she missed out on the process and that was a mistake she wasn't going to make again. With gender physics, you take both the how and the what into consideration, and you remain cognizant of the mission while implementing the processes to achieve it. A perfect example of gender physics can be found in the movie Shawshank Redemption. Do you remember it? It's a great one. Anyway, an emotionally constipated banker is wrongly convicted of murdering his wife, and he gets into prison and endures multiple beatings. And he knows he must put in place a process so that he can reach his goal and get out of there. So he starts helping the guards with financial matters because he has that skills. He was a banker. And he eventually ends up helping the warden launder money. And then he escapes through a tunnel that he built over 19 years. And when he's out, he withdraws all the laundered money from the banks. He exposes the prison warden to the FBI, and he escapes to Mexico. It's a great result, and it all happened because he used gender physics and combined the how with the what. Have a look at the virtues or strengths of the how-what variable. And remember that there's masculine strengths and feminine strengths. And although they appear to be polar opposites, really they're different versions of the same and are far better, more effective when used together. So it starts out with feminine being process, while masculine is goal. And we've talked about that a bit already. Then we have feminine being exercise and masculine being outcome. Then we have problem prevention and problem resolution. Feminine energy people are very vigilant about making sure that they avoid a problem, while masculine energy people, they're kind of like go for the goal, and if there's a problem, we'll figure it out later. Feminine energy people focus on the journey, while for masculine energy people, it's all about the destination. And of course, we know that we want to get where we want to go, but we want to enjoy the journey along the way as well. And finally, feminine energy people are very concerned about the stakeholder, while masculine energy people are concerned about the bottom line. Feminine energy people really pay attention to the stakeholder and how every action, every goal, every outcome, how it will affect other people. They're people. With masculine energy people, it's all about the outcome. It's about the bottom line. And too often, they'll focus on what they want without paying attention to the pros and cons that it will take to get there. Of course, if we're spending too much time in the how without paying attention to the what, where we want to be, what we want, we're going to end up falling into the how vices. Our strengths become weaknesses. When we spend too much time on the process, we become overwhelmed because we forget what it is that we wanted to do. When we spend too much time on the exercise, we become exhausted. There's a great deal of satisfaction from reaching your goal, and if you never get there, it's very tiring. If we spend too much time on problem prevention, we become paranoid. We think of every little thing that could go wrong, and our mind plays tricks on us, and we have trouble finding our way clear to know where we want to go. If we spend too much time on the journey, we end up procrastinating, and again, we never get where we want to go. We never reach our destination. If we spend too much time on the stakeholder, we can end up being a martyr. These are the people in the office that go around and tell you how early they got there, how many people they've taken care of, and how much they've given up to achieve it. And obviously, we need to have that balance between taking care of our stakeholders and having a successful business, because that's the bottom line. If we spend only time on the stakeholders, we won't have a business to pay attention to them and to serve them. But if we only spend time on the bottom line, we won't have the stakeholders we need to serve our business. We need both. In the how, what variable, the virtues of the what masculine energy are focusing on the goal. But again, if you only focus on the goal, you can fall into the vice of obsession, where all you're worried about is that goal, and you completely lose sight of everything else. If you only focus on the outcome, you end up with emptiness. I had a young woman in a workshop tell me once that she was planning a trip to Paris, but she didn't spend time on the exercise, on thinking about where she wanted to go and what she wanted to see. And she recognized that she lost a lot because there's a lot in the anticipation of an event, that when you're in the exercise, you plan what you're going to do and then you enjoy it more when you get there. And she said she ended up in the City of Lights and felt nothing but emptiness. Problem resolution ends up often with a quick fix. If you haven't paid attention to how to prevent a problem, and you just think, I'll deal with it when I get there. If there is a problem, I'll resolve it then. And then all of a sudden you have a problem, you haven't thought about it. So you don't know the best way to deal with it. And then you end up giving it a quick fix, and it usually doesn't work. And if you're only worried about getting to your destination, you're likely to become impatient. And there's no way you can enjoy the journey under those circumstances. And if you're only worried about the bottom line, you can become immoral. And unfortunately, we do see this in the business world. Companies that will take immoral positions in order to make money because they're not concerned about the people they've been set up to serve. A movie that typified a business being immoral was The Big Short. Governments and banks ignored the peril of the people and their private homes and mortgages, while others who were immoral moved in and took advantage of those people to make money for themselves. It shows what happens when you're only interested in the bottom line.